Why do you coach? Welcome to the Nick Anthony Show. I'm Anthony.
And I'm Nick.
Hey, Nick. How are you today?
I'm good, Ann.
Good.
I got a lot going on at my day job. So I got a lot going on.
But the look on your face is it's not good stuff, so I'm sorry.
I don't know. Well, yeah, I would say probably a little both. But,
Okay.
so I have a question for you, though.
Okay.
Do you drink coffee?
No, I do not.
Okay. End of story then, I guess.
Why was that a story? What were you going to go?
I was just drinking my coffee on the way here.
Yeah.
I'm a creature of habit. Got to drink my coffee in the car.
No.
One cup of coffee. And I didn't start drinking coffee until almost, I guess I was 40 something.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And I felt like I became an adult at that age. So.
Oh, well, I don't want to be an adult, so.
Okay. And I'm also, I don't even drink. Yeah. The adult beverages. I'm not, I really haven't gotten into a lot of adult beverages other than, kind of the simple stuff. So,
Right.
But I just figured I'd ask,
Okay.
Get to know you.
No, there's a story
Get to
behind
know
it.
the
But
host.
it's not important. It's not important for this show.
So this is interesting, I think, topic today because I think it's I would say, and this may be the wrong categorization, but it's probably more used in business than it maybe is in sports. And the reason I say that is I don't know if the coaches per se are gonna would have used something like this. They might they might think about it or do some short-term stuff, but I don't know if they really dive into what we're going to talk about. This really gives a structure around things.
Are you saying they should?
They definitely should.
Oh, okay. I misunderstood.
No,
you.
I'm saying I
Okay.
think it's applicable, and that's why we're talking about it with coaches.
Well, I think
coaches.
I think you'd be surprised how often it's not done in business either. But go ahead.
Yes. No, I agree. No, you're right. But I think, you hear a little bit more, and the topic of SPACE, the acronym of SPACE.
Yeah.
Is that fair?
It is an acronym. Yep.
So, just to rewind a little bit, something we talked about on a previous show was Halo and how it was so important to me and almost a lot of our work together to start our relationship and what you did to help me at Drexel. I just thought it's worth bringing up again, right? It was a big topic. It was a big project that we worked on. And so just a quick remind. A quick remind was, Halo became the title of the project of a plan, of a goal and a plan that we laid out at Drexel. And the goal became, how can we win in men's basketball within 4 years, get to the NCAA tournament, win a championship. And it wound up happening again. And as I said previously, that I'm not the coach, and there were so many different factors. But for me and what we were doing at Drexel, it gave focus. It gave a lot, drove decisions, did so much to organize us and stay disciplined to kind of what the goal and then and the plan that we laid out. So we're going to talk about SPACE, which I think you can kind of relate in. Okay, we went through the exercise of SPACE,
right,
in coming up with Halo, and so I think coaches need to really pay attention to this. Like, I think it's a great way to frame what we're talking about, and as you go through it, I'll kind of interject a little bit with how coaches can apply this. So.
Right.
Why don't you start us in SPACE?
All right, I'll start with telling you what it stands for, and then I'll give a little background if that works for you. So it's really, SPACE is an acronym, as you said, and is setting the goals, planning, taking action, staying committed, and then evaluating everything, right? So
goals, plan, action,
well,
committed.
It's setting the goals. It's an active thing, right?
Correct.
It's not just
well, I'm just where the letters are coming from.
Right.
I mean, like
it's setting, right?
Yep.
It's planning, building a plan. It's taking action. It's staying committed, and then it's evaluating everything all the time.
Yep.
Right. And so that's what that is. And as you recall, in one of our earlier episodes, episode 2, we really spent a lot of time talking about goal setting, and that's a lot of the S in space, is setting the goals. And as we said, a powerful goal has to be precise and specific. It has to be big enough that it's captivating, that it actually gathers people's energies and attention. It has to be realistically possible, right? Not necessarily practical, but it has to be realistically possible. And then it has to be measurable. It has to be an objective measurement. You have to know whether you accomplished your goal or not. So those are the components. There also has to be a timestamp to it, a deadline to it. So you have a deadline, but it has to be those core things plus the deadline for it to be a powerful thing. And so I'll acknowledge that there's lots of people out there with a lot of different systems, but S.P.A.C.E. I developed because I found them lacking. I mean, there's tons of people out there with tons of, project management tools and goal setting tools and all that kind of stuff. And I found them lacking. And I found them lacking in my business world. And then I used it with you, quite frankly, and it worked with you too. So I do think it has a role in sports and in business and everything. And as you said a minute ago, it's not used enough in sports. It's not used enough in business either. Yeah. And that's why, I don't think there's another tool out there that quite does everything that this does, where it's all encapsulating. So, and I go back and I'll tell you, if you look at any project, and I can tell you whether it's sports or business or whatever, you're home managing the law, whatever it is, just like anything, there's 2 big things that cause projects to fail. And out of the gate, the first one is just the goal's not set right. It's not clear. Not everybody understands it. It's not, the things that we just talked about. It's not precise, or it's not big enough to be captivating. It's not realistic, right? It's not measurable, right? Yep. It's all those kind of things. Or the second thing, and I don't know that we're going to spend any time talking about this today, or management or people in charge, whoever's in charge of the project, underestimate the skills and the people that it takes to get that project done. I've seen it 1,000 times in business where people high enough up in the organization say, oh, that computer programmer and that's a computer programmer, they're interchangeable, right? I can just take that guy and move him over here, and she can move over here, and everything's fine. And that's just farthest thing from the truth. And in athletics, it's totally true. You can watch youth sports to pro sports. You can look and say, oh, that player is different. Right? You can't just say, oh, that's running back's the same as that running back. That seems so obvious when you talk about sports, but they miss it a lot in the business world.
Yeah, I think they miss it. I mean, I will relate that to, I would say management is the coach.
Right.
Yes. And so I do think there is some of that interchangeable, notion, because some of it's just they're forced to, right? I mean, a player gets hurt, or a player graduates, and if we're talking about college and recruiting, and then they're trying to plug that hole, and often they'll plug a player that maybe isn't the same as the previous one.
Right.
So anyway, I do think there's a clear, even with the second point of the why a plan or a goal or why this would fail in a project would fail. I would say that coaches are management in this, to relate it directly to hopefully our audience.
Right, and general managers as well. I mean, if you look at the Cowboys and what they did with what's his name,
Micah Parsons.
Yeah, Parsons this year. It's like, no, that's not. Just because other people have that title, he is a cut above.
Yeah,
and you look at their defense this year, it's not what they were hoping for. So S.P.A.C.E. I created, and I want to talk about goal types just for a minute, because there's different types of goals.
You have a minute to talk about that. No, I'm just kidding.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Well, I'll try to do that fast. Well, actually, a minute might be tough, but I'll be fast. And these are more for me. And so again, we've talked in other shows to our audience. It's like, if you don't like these labels, that's fine, because this space is really made to be consumed by others. And I think it's an acronym that works in all the guys. These goal types are really, really personal to me, and they help me, right? But use something else. Like, I don't know that you'd ever use these, but I have 5 goal types, right, in my mind. And the first one is actually the easiest one, and I call it the English Channel. And it sounds crazy to say the English Channel is easy, but really the English Channel, there's no real time limit to it. You can do it. I proved that you can do it when you're older. Right. There's nobody working against you. It's not a competition. It's like you can go swim the English Channel, I can swim the English Channel, and we both win. Right. There's none of that kind of stuff. So that's one goal type I call the English Channel. And that is when you're out there, there's no really end time frame or you're running out of time and nobody's really working against you. And then there's the World Series. That's my second goal type. And that is you have a goal. There is a time frame to it, for at least for this year, right? There's a time frame to it, but you have competition. Now, the famous saying in baseball is, we'll get them again next year, right? So for the fans, the owners, most of the team, you always have next year in the World Series, but there's a competition to win the World Series this year. It's not always true for the players. Players get to move on. So even though it's the World Series, it's different for a player, different type of goal for a player than it is for management or for the fans, right? So that sounds crazy, but it is. Same goal means a different thing. It's a different goal type for different people. So that's the World Series. The next one is the college record, and that's category number 3. And that is really, there's people working against you because other people are trying to get that college goal. It's something personal to you. You've decided you want to go break this college record, but there's a time frame to it, right? And it might be that you get a couple years to do it, but at some point your eligibility is up and it's over. So not only do you have people working against you, but there's a time frame to it. To understand that's your goal is really important, that you can run out of time. And this is where it flips over, right? Those are all kind of sports related. The next one is, for me, is quota. All right. And it sounds crazy, but I was a salesperson at some point in my life. And you get quota assigned to you, typically by your boss or up the chain or somewhere. You get quota assigned to you, and you have to decide whether you're going to accept that quota or not. You could always quit. Right? You could always go get another job. You can leave sales. You can do all kinds of stuff. You got a choice, but somebody else really defines that goal for you. You're not defining it for yourself. And there's a time frame, and there's competition. There's all kinds of stuff. People trying to stop you from getting your quota from the other companies and those kinds of things. And then, so that's 4 categories. And then the 5th category is really life goals. And life goals are, and again, that's outside sports. It's bigger than sports. It's when something comes into your life that you can't not do. Like quota, you can say, I'm leaving. But life goals I put in category of, I don't know, health issues, kids with your, issues with your kids or whatever it is. And those are goals that are put on you that you can't really quit. Right. And I still contend, even though those are forced on you, there's nothing you can do about it. You can tackle those a lot better if you put a goal to it. And it sounds easy to say, just sitting here talking in the studio, like this kind of stuff, Nick, but it may be as simple as, I'm going to make it through today. It may be simple as, I'm going to make it to my next treatment. It may be, I'm going to do everything I can to make the next 3 treatments. Whatever it is, right? I still contend, even if it's forced on you, having a goal helps you get to the next level, right? And then space applies. And so that's the S. That's the setting the goal, right?
So let me just cut you real quick.
Yeah. So absolutely.
So I would say, related to sports, take the life one out. Goals. The difference in the goals, right, is time. Competition is, one is, with kind of your first one with the English Channel, it's you. I mean, you're competing against yourself, right? But then the other ones as well, it's like you have an opposing force against you who is working against you, right? And then the measurables, the time frame that you have it in, right? There's just to kind of, I think they all apply in again, different levels of coaching is, okay, what do I have and what am I trying to do? And if you're a youth coach, perhaps it, or, high school, it's like, I want to build a program that really doesn't have an end date, but I want to compete for championships year in and year out, right?
Right.
Now, your short term is like, yeah, you only have these kids for 2 or 3 years. You only have, but what am I going to do on the goal setting to okay, I'm in, and the precise goal could be I want to be in the semifinals 8 out of 10 years consistent, and have a top tier program.
Right.
Just to kind of wrap it into kind of, all right, how coaches apply. So keep going with
No,
your
and
next,
I want to go down on that a little bit. So I know this high school coach who is trying to build a program that doesn't just win occasionally, but they're perennial, competitors for championships, right? And it was a turnaround program. He really had to turn the program around. But he did a great job of positioning the kids early in his process to let them know they were part of the culture change.
Yeah.
Right. And so he continues, even though they've graduated. For them, it was kind of like a college record kind of thing, except he changed their goal. Their goal wasn't to go win while they were there, but to help establish the culture while they're there. Yep. Right. Yep. So again, that's still setting the goal. And so now the team that he's coaching is really pretty good, and they are competing.
Yep.
Well, guess what he does? He includes those kids that are gone from the school already.
Yeah,
right. He has them come back. He talks to them. He has them talk to the team. He's made them part of the culture, so that those people, even though they're gone, right, they are still part of the program. They're still part of the culture, and the kids that are there now get back and say, "Oh, I'm part of something," right? And so he's done a great job with that. But it comes back to, again, goal setting, what he wants to do, and then it's really the planning piece, right? Because he knew he couldn't create a championship right away. So these kids, I want to be part of the program. That's part of my plan, and that's the P in SPACE. Is you go in there, and there's 2 major concepts when you talk about planning, and that I want to. I mean, again, we've said this before. This is how I look at the world. This is how you might look at the world, but it's. If our audience has other things that they think, send us feedback, send us comments, that kind of stuff, and we'll talk about them. But the 2 major concepts I want to just discuss today is backwards planning, and it's really how the military works in a lot of ways. They don't say, "Oh, where should we go today?" They say, "We want to take that hill." It's really important that we take that hill. So, and then that's our objective, and then they work backwards from there, right? And then you get all episode 2 stuff. There's rules of engagement. There's all that kind of stuff that we talked about in episode 2. But it's backwards planning. It's not, I hate career planning that says, where do you want to be in 5 years? Yeah. It's like, no. You decide, you know what I mean? And then you're sitting there and it's like, oh, in 5 years. No, think about where you want to be at the end of your career, right? And then work backwards from that. Don't look out just 5 years, because then you'll lose 5 years. Yeah, you might get to 5 years, but does that really get to where you want to be of whatever is in your career? You want to be financially independent at the end. You want whatever it is, but you have to look at the whole picture. Not 5 years is not the goal, right? 5 years is the milestone. And then there's the concept of waterfall versus iterative, and this is a little bit of
say that again.
Waterfall versus iterative. Okay. Apparently, I'm tongue-tied today. Okay. So anyway, I think the audience will know what I'm trying to say. But the old days of computer programming, for example, is like you always did. You talked about what you wanted to do, then you did spec design, then you did, the building, then you did the testing, then you did the rollout. In today's world of programming, it's much more iterative. Can you say that word?
No.
Okay, I can't either. Yeah. Iterative. Okay. And that is,
you
do stuff, you test it, you go as you go, you see how it looks, and it's constantly churning, right? You're getting feedback as you go, as opposed to building a spec book that you program to that might be antiquated by the time you're done building it.
Okay.
Right? Where you know what I mean? It's like tech writers used to write it out. And now and there's still times when waterfall is appropriate, but iterative is how things are done most of the time. And that's really what the A is in action too. Like if you're doing a goal, like for me, and I keep promising you I'm not going to bring up, marathon swimming, but for me, to swim the English Channel when I swim it, there weren't a lot of resources available to me. The internet wasn't what it is today, and it sounds crazy because it was so relatively recent.
It wasn't that long ago.
I know, but you'd be shocked because I swam in 2013. You'd be shocked how much things have changed since then. Okay. If you stop and really think about technology advancements, right? Yeah. So
But there was the internet, just for the record.
What's that?
There was the internet.
There was, but anyway, never mind. We're going down a rabbit hole next. But so I had to go figure out how to do something that I didn't know how to do, right? And there weren't resources for me to go tap. And I would say go tap resources. That should be part of your planning and your actions. But the A is really to get feedback. Right. So let's say, I don't know, you've got a kid that you're trying to teach how to be a lacrosse goalie, right? And you think that maybe you might be able to teach them. Well, you have to go in the field or to the net and like chuck some balls at him or whatever you guys shoot some balls at him and see what his response time is. And then, okay, now I've got feedback on where that kid really is. Now I can put a better plan together. So the A
baseline. Some of it's baseline testing, baseline observations.
There you go. Perfect. No, perfect. Yeah. Right. But then you've created a feedback loop. That's what's so important about action. You get so many people that spend time in their kitchen table or their, wherever, their office, doing all this planning, but they never get any feedback. And then they spend all that time planning, like in a waterfall model, right? Without getting feedback. And it's much better to plan just to get to the point of more feedback. So you're planning and then your plan constantly gets refined. You don't go back and revisit the goal all the time, but sometimes you have to do that too, but you don't let the goal slip away, but you constantly let your plan get blown up, right? That sounds crazy, but you have a plan, but it's just really like, what action do I take next?
Yeah, I'll give you a pause because you need, so for everyone, we did this when we talked about the podcast. I mean, very, we put a goal out. Anthony wrote it down, put it on a piece of paper. I bet you he has it framed somewhere. And
it's in my briefcase.
Okay, but we'll frame it. And then we went through. And the one thing I remember you saying to me and to us when we would meet was, we need let's keep doing something. Even if it's just researching, even if it's just ask somebody, even if it's just whatever it is, take action, and then we would get constant feedback. So we did a lot of this with this project. We did this with this project, right. And even we're going to get into a couple other things, but I wanted to give you a breath because if everyone doesn't know, Anthony is very passionate about this. If you can't tell, he has spoken about this many times. He has used this many times with his clients. So I just wanted to give you a little bit of a breath. You can get some water, and then. Go ahead. Now
that was your way of saying I was talking to you about.
No. Well, but it's funny because I would say. You're passionate about it, and that's part of that. That's kind of what I wanted you to get a sip of water, but I do want to just note that that you've seen this in action many times, and I have too, specifically in two instances, Halo and our this show, right. And though we don't know where all our show is going to go, we keep doing, kind of space as we go along.
We definitely have our goals set for the show, and we know what success looks like.
And we planned.
Right, and we've planned.
And we've altered the plan.
And we've altered lots of times.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
And we've taken lots of actions.
Yes.
Just even before getting to the studio here,
yes.
right, at Rip Roaring Studios, we went through that loop, planning and action.
Yeah.
Literally thousands of times.
100%.
Right.
We'll be right back to the Nick Anthony Show.
Today's show is brought to you by John Gannon Music, genre-exploding music for your daily adventures. Visit johngannon.bandcamp.com. That's johngannon.bandcamp.com and look for it on all music streaming platforms.
Welcome back to the Nick Anthony Show.
So,
all right. So what's next?
So then after that is commitment, right? Because it's really easy to take that action and get negative feedback, right? And to think, oh my gosh, this is harder than I thought. I thought this was going to be blah, blah, blah. I thought it was going to be easy. I thought it was going to be a piece of cake, right? No, that, if you go back to our, goal setting thing where we want every kid to be able to do a layup in basketball by the end of the season, it's like, oh my gosh, my kids can't even dribble the ball, right? And you know what? You can decide then, right? You have to, anyway, so you go through that. So you have to stay committed. You have to stay committed that you're on the right direction. And I think it took us, months and months longer for us.
Yeah. Are you committed to that, to being in the right direction, or are you committed to your beliefs or your, I think
it's really two things. I do. So we'll get to the E in a second.
Yep.
Okay. But you have to be committed that it matters enough that you're going to push through whatever trouble you have.
That
right.
That
That's really
good.
what
that helps.
You have to. The C is really attacking the E and PKE, right? And you have to go back to episode 1 to understand PKE. But it's really when the emotional stuff gets hard, right? That's when your E gets up there. You have to be committed, right? So it's the E in PKE and the C in space to work through those emotional.
You took one of my points in this.
Oh, go ahead.
It was just funny. But that I thought with C, that's when your E, your emotional comes into play.
That's exactly right.
Strength. So,
but it's all those kind of things. So it's like, let's say, and I don't have a good example for us, but I don't know. But let's say something goes wrong, right? You see it all the time in sports teams where they blame the player. They blame somebody. Somebody gets blamed for it. It's like, who do you blame? And Sports Talk Radio does this all the time. Who do you blame more for this loss? Let's have a poll today and say, do you blame Bubba for this loss, right?
For coaches, sometimes a team's just better than you, just for the record. And you have to figure it out later. But sometimes for fans too and parents, sometimes the other team's just better.
I agree.
Anyway, go ahead.
I agree with that. But when I know that the organization's in trouble, is when leadership says things that don't take responsibility. They don't say to themselves, they don't say publicly, and this is where Andy Reid got all kinds of commitments, say, I need to do a better job, right? But at least he never blamed anybody.
No, 100%.
Right? And I don't know whether he believed he needed to do a better job or not. He said it so much, I'm not sure. But that's a winner's attitude is, I need to do a better job. But then my follow-up question is, what is it that you need to do better? If I'm his business coach, if I'm helping Andy Reid, it's like, maybe don't do it publicly, but internally.
That's the difference.
It's like, let's dive into that and say, okay, you need to do a better job. What is it? Right? But then if he owns it, then he's a winner.
Yes.
If he doesn't own it and he says things like, well, Johnny screwed up or Sally screwed up, then these not really internalizing. So I'd say that person's E is weak and they're not really committed to work through everything that they need to work through in order to get done. So they have to own it, right? And then you have to work, like I said, you have to work through it. So you have to have the E to work through it. And then the E in space, right? So we're
not to be confused with PKE.
No, it's a different E, right?
Yes.
But the E in space is easy to say and really hard to do.
Yes.
Right? And that is you have to evaluate everything all the time. Right? You have to evaluate your own commitment, your own ownership. You have to evaluate your own actions, your own planning and everything else. Typically, right, if you've done a great job at goal setting, you don't have to change that. But so many times when things get hard, people evaluate and say, oh, that's not a realistic goal. Right. And again, the example I used of a not realistic goal in episode 2 was I could want to play in the NBA as much as I want to, but like I said, my vertical leap is like 6 inches. It might even be less than that. I'm never playing in the NBA, no matter how much I want it. So that's not realistic. But if I'd set that as my goal, I want to go play in the NBA, I've got to evaluate this. Oh, wait, I made a plan to go work on my vertical leap. I took action. I went to the gym, blah, 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 blah. I stayed committed. I worked through it when the trainer, told me to do all these things. I stayed committed. I worked hard. And I need to evaluate it. And it's like, oh, this is not realistic, right?
Yeah.
But so many people give up too early, right? Like, and again, I'm going to go back to the English Channel because that's my thing, right? That's what mattered so much to me is I had lots of lousy workouts along the way. Because I went from basically a guy who could do about, at the time, I'm not telling you I couldn't do more before, but I was doing about a mile in a pool to go into doing 20 plus miles in open water and cold open water, right? And to go through that, I had lots of setbacks. And so every setback caused me to evaluate and like, wait, what do I need to do different in my training program? What do I need to do different in my whatever it is? And I evaluate those things all the time. And you have to evaluate things with nothing is off limits.
I know.
And it's really hard.
You had said that to me.
Right.
And
it's really
you kind
hard.
of want to be able to check some boxes, don't you?
You do, but you can't. Nothing can be off limits. And so especially if you're a head coach of a bigger program or a GM of something, you can't have favorites. You can't, I mean, really, you might have a favorite player. You might have somebody that did a great job for you 2 years ago, but are they going to do what you need to have done now, today, going forward? It's really hard because we're all people and we get emotionally attached and we have our biases. We have all those kinds of things. We like people like us. We like people that we relate to. But sometimes, right, you have to move on. And it's hard. That's why the E sounds like, oh, evaluate everything all the time. It sounds so easy, but it's really, really hard.
Yeah, it is. And you know, I mean, I would say, I also think, you know, for coaches, the E, you know, the evaluation has to be somewhat organized. You know, as you're saying, evaluate all the time, right? I think there's a structure to it, maybe, where it's like, you know what, I'm not going to like keep questioning myself every day, but I'm going to look back on the week, look back on the month, look back and see and evaluate, right? Yeah, because I think you can get into a loop, right?
I think I want to use a positive words though, right? And that is evaluating things is a positive thing because there's evaluating saying, how did my workout go today, right? That's not questioning the plan or questioning the action, right? So questioning sounds like a negative thing. So you're not questioning yourself. You're not doubting yourself, but you are looking at every component and every step you've made. You have to evaluate, that was a good step. Yes, I want to do more than that. That was a bad step. Yep. I want to avoid doing that. That's not, so let's go back to action, right? Because part of action is discovering information. So yes, you have questions all the time, but don't put questioning in your mind. You want that feedback loop.
Yep.
Johnny, who I put in front of the lacrosse goal today, you know what? He's not our goalie, right? I'm going youth sport, right? Like, we're doing tryouts out of these 15 kids I have. I don't even know what the right number is, but you figure out who's the goalie.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, so it's not questioning yourself, right? But it's still evaluating everything all the time. And if none of those do it, like, what do I do? And then the ownership piece, the commitment piece is like, okay, I've got these 15 kids. None of them are good.
Yeah.
I've still committed to creating a program or committed to building a team or whatever. What am I going to do?
Yeah.
You don't just go to the bar or go to your home and complain to your spouse that, oh my gosh, these kids are horrible. I can't, we have no hope. We're going to lose everything all year long. It's like, no. You own it, figure it out, right?
Yeah.
You have your input, you have your information by taking action. You go back to your P and figure out a different plan. And then it might not be perfect. You don't wait until it's a perfect plan because there is no perfect plan. You put a plan in for the next step and then you take that next step. And it's like, you know what? On the second day, Jimmy didn't look so bad.
Yeah.
Right? He actually has pretty fast hand speed. Maybe I could work on his footwork instead of his hand speed, blah, blah, blah. Right? So just whatever it is, right? Yeah. You go figure out what your plan is. You take action. You stay committed and you own it.
So, like, if we go to your English channel, your journey.
Yeah. And I'm sorry for bringing it up.
No. I mean, but I think it's, I think a lot of what you, something like this organization in S.P.A.C.E. comes out of
S.P.A.C.E.
your experience. It works in, I'm not saying that, but where like the evolution of some of it in your own, and processing of it, who was or what was your coach in this, right? I mean, so much of this and so much of what I think was impressive in what you were doing was this was a lot of self, right? Yes. I mean, did you have anyone to help you evaluate, to bounce things off of, to ask you questions? Anthony, are you doing this? Are you doing that? Or is this for you? And I don't want it to make it all about you, but how did you get through that? I mean, how did you do
So,
kind of do
so-
those things on your own.
So I did apply this to the English Channel.
Yeah.
You're absolutely right. And this is it's gonna sound crazy now because again, it wasn't that long ago, but the world was so different then. I didn't even know anyone who'd swim the English Channel.
Mm-hmm.
I believe, I don't know this to be fact, and if you guys know differently, that
Now
I was.
we all know someone.
Now
Which
you all
would have been,
know
I
someone.
don't know if it was a lifetime goal for me to know someone who swam the English Channel, but yeah,
But check that box.
Yeah,
but,
I checked it.
But I didn't know anyone who personally who'd known that. I'd known of people and I knew their names and that read a couple books about people like that kind of stuff. But I didn't know anybody personally that had done it. And I don't know this is a fact, but I've been told I was the second person ever from Pennsylvania to swim the English Channel. I don't know if that's fact, but Darren Miller, a guy out of Pittsburgh, was
we'll use this
supposedly
thing called
number
the
one.
internet to find out
Well,
if
it's harder than you
it's
think.
true.
It's
Okay.
harder than you think. I believe it's true,
Okay.
but I wouldn't argue if someone
Okay.
said, "Oh no, Johnny went to Villanova when he did it" or something, right? But anyway, but yeah, I used this because I didn't know anything, right? And so I put a plan in place to go discover information, and then I took action, right? And I developed all my own workouts, right? Because I had to figure out what was right. And then I went and I did test swims. I did like the 24-mile swim in Tampa Bay.
It's pretty impressive.
I mean, I swam around Key West.
the plan
I-
is as impressive as the action.
Well,
right?
I tell you, this is where like goal setting. This is where S.P.A.C.E works. Is I had a 2-year plan, right? And then I got feedback because I swam around Key West and I had a disastrous. I made the swim. I made it, but it was a disaster, right? Around Key West, it was just horrible. And so my 2-year plan had to become a 3-year plan because it was so bad.
Yeah, I remember you telling me that once. Yeah.
So I had a plan. I took action. I got my feedback. I was still committed to swimming the English Channel. I had to evaluate everything and come up with a plan. And the plan became a 2-year plan.
Yeah.
Right? Now, did I evaluate the goal during that time? Absolutely. It was like, do I still want to swim the English Channel? Do I have to give up? There were some dark moments in there where I was like, man, if I had such a hard time with this 12.5-mile swim in warm water, how in the world am I ever going to do a 20+ mile swim in cold water?
Yeah.
So I admit that there was lots of dark moments in there. But I stayed committed to, but I evaluated it, said, no, I still want to do that goal. I have to change the goal to make it a 3-year plan instead of a 2-year plan. This is my new plan. This is what I'm going to do, and so on and so forth. And I just kept going through S.P.A.C.E until I swam the English Channel.
Yeah.
And actually, to full disclosure, right, it went from a 2-year plan to a 3-year plan. It actually took 4 years to do it. Right? It took 4 years.
Yeah.
That's how bad I am.
That's how bad you are. So with coaching, I think what's hard at certain levels, and I'll say specifically probably those that are pretty well paid, pro, college, high college, is sometimes it is hard and you need someone in your corner, i.e. your boss, general manager, athletic director, whatever, right? To allow you,
even an assistant, if you're
I mean, let me go.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Because sometimes you wind up having to, let's say, win right away, and you have trouble sticking to a plan, right? And or to in kind of this structure because you're going to get fired, and I think the world we're in is this quick results, immediate results, and then you're if it's not, you're done, right? And I think so. I think coaches at certain levels have trouble with this, and I would relate it to. So the one story and I've talked about it before, but Virginia basketball was. They were awful to watch. I mean, and they never really were a pretty watch. And they struggled because it was like so long. I don't know how many years, 2, 3, 4 years, 5 years of setting this is the way we're going to play basketball. And really, the one thing I'll say is staying committed to what their beliefs are, to how they wanted to do things. And they stayed, but some of them allowed them to do that, and some of them allowed them to do that. So I do think at the higher levels, it is very hard. You had the goals or the thing you want to you put in place as you do S.P.A.C.E, there has to be quicker, and that's where I think some of this comes into play. Now, at high school, at youth, at club, as you're setting these things, I do think you get a little bit more. Okay, I have a little bit of runway. I don't have to misfire or make bad decisions in the short term and get, because the one where we've committed that I think you and I have talked about in the past is there's a little discipline to that. Mm-hmm. Right. And I think sometimes coaches aren't disciplined because if I just take this kid, or if I just do this, or if I, let's break out of this to do something in the immediate, whether it's to win that game or to win that season, and then they struggle. It hurts them in the larger goal, which was, the goal was up here. It was, and so I just think with coaches, how important this is, and to put it into perspective of your time frame, and then break down your plan with that. And then I love the action. I think coaches take action all the time, right? They do that. What they don't do necessarily is stay committed, and then evaluate, but have the best goal they can. If coaches can not just, I need to get this kid, I'm recruiting, all these things that they have to keep doing all the time. And it's just because I want to win, And it's like, put something up there that you can follow a plan. And some of it is you got to step back 30,000 feet and look down and then stay in this. And I think coaches really struggle. I see it all the time. I mean, like, as you and I were preparing for the show, I'm thinking, God, I got to do a better job of getting our coaches that I work with to organize themselves in this manner, because I just think it gives them a structure to be successful.
Right. I agree with you. And you see it all the time, even in the NFL now. You see perennial teams that do well, and you see perennial teams that don't do well. And it's the old saying, it starts at the top, right? And coaches that are put in a position to be reactionary and have to do a turnaround immediately, they typically, there's a churn and burn. And a lot of spots. And the other teams that are perennial winners, perennial contenders, have more stability there. And I contend it starts with ownership perspective and the pressure they put on the coaches.
So, yeah, definitely. 100%.
Right? And so you can blame the coaches, and as fans, we often do, but I think it starts higher than that.
Yeah. And I think this is, the S.P.A.C.E is applicable at every level. It really is. And I'd want coaches to think about it. Again, they may structure it a little differently, and maybe there's other words or acronyms in a sense that make sense to them, that keep them kind of in this mode of planning and goal setting, and then how to evaluate. Because when you start mixing them all together, somebody may kind of interchange some of their thoughts or acronyms,
and that's okay.
Yeah, it totally is.
I'll say that I've used it in business and in sports, and it got developed because I couldn't find anything else out there that really worked this way. Yeah. So my takeaway, really, I'd say my take. I think a takeaway for coaches is, look outside of sports a little bit for some help. And I would say in this sense, business, and organize a little bit, like take a step back. And yes, I think part of this is just, you got to take action, but I really think it really starts higher than that, and it is the goal setting, and it is putting the plan together, and again, it's just an organization. It's just giving you structure and ways to think and act and direct your team, your coaches, the program, the parents. Like it all needs to make sense. Right. Not just, wow, we need to do this, because this is what winning teams do. No. What is it? What's the plan? Right. So I think it's a huge takeaway for everyone, to at least, think about
the larger picture of space in this case to help you organize
it just
your
helps
programs.
you. We talk about it all the time. It's just, no matter what it is, there's thousands of things you have to do to be successful at whatever it is you're trying to do. And it's just the way to organize your thoughts. So SPACE is setting the goals, right? Putting a plan together, taking action, staying committed, and evaluating everything all the time.
And you too can swim the English Channel. No.
Actually, I believe that. I do believe that. You're making fun of me, but
I'm not making fun of you.
Okay.
I'm making fun of I don't know, myself a little bit. All
right. Thanks for your time today, Nick.
That was great. Thanks,
right.
Anth.
I enjoyed it.
All right.
Thanks for joining us for today's show. We want to hear from you with your questions and comments. You can find us at thenickanthonyshow.com and our social media handles, which you can find in our description.